Storage area networks is for the 7th semester. It is an elective subject and it is very much important for current IT trends. All the people in the industries were adopting the storage area networks, starting from the implementation people and managing people, as well as for business improvement. Storage area network is very much important. So for that purpose, in a curriculum, storage area network has been incorporated. So what we study in the storage area network? Before studying storage area networks, we have come across with the operating system in the previous semesters. We have come across with the database management systems. These are, and we are also come across with the various storage technologies in the previous semesters. Today, these semesters will talks about the storage area networks, which is very much advanced topic and it is used in the IT industries. So in a curriculum, they have formed the syllabus as a storage area network. As the name suggests that, here we are discussing only on the storages of our informations which we are daily life or for a business purpose, where we are forming the informations is being stored, okay, and that stored information is not in the same places. It may be in the different areas, okay, so it may not be stored in the same places, or it may be in a different places. Those stored information in a different places has been communicated to the business purpose and for evaluation purpose. So that will be utilized by the network. So our storage information has been stored in the different areas by using the network technology. That is the subjects which we are learning. First module, they have discussed about what is being information. Okay, they will be starting with what do you mean by informations. So we know that we have a large number of informations, but we have large number of data. All data cannot be used by all the peoples and in all the scenarios. So we need to convert that data into an informations. How do we convert the data into informations? So that plays the major roles. Not only we are converting the informations into a data, the data into an informations, that information has to be available for the users at the required times. Okay, how do we do that? That will be done through the networking, and the information which we are using, our required availability for the users has to be stored in some places. The storing some places is done by the storage area networks. So in the first module, we discussed about what do you mean by storage systems. Okay, what do you mean by storage systems? So we know that in the earlier days, we store the informations in the tape, in the cassette. Okay, we stored the information in the tape and the cassette. Now we are storing the information in the CD, compact drive. So we are storing the information in the CD. Now it arises with the pen drive. That means the storing information has been compacting, and we can store the large informations in a small spaces. That is what the technology has been grown. Okay, how actually the storage system has been grown and how the information is growing, what are the challenges we need to face for storing the informations, for not only storing the informations, to protect the informations and to preserve the informations for a long term. That is what we are learning in this module. Okay, so what is the challenges we are facing in it? Next we discussed about, so what do you mean by storage systems? As I was telling that it's a small storages, what I told, like CD. In CD we are storing the information, we are storing the information in the pen drive, but that is not the sufficient for us. We are storing the informations in a computer by using the hard disk. Okay, not only one disk we requires for storing the informations, we are generating a terabytes of informations. For that purpose, we need to have a large number of disks which has to be arranged in a sequential order or in a parallel orders, like that. but that type of data stored in the sequential orders is called as a data centers. So for that data centers there will be an environment. So environment indicates that simply we can't store the information and keep it as it is. So the stored information has to be communicated to the end users for the sharing the informations. So for that purpose we need to have a network for doing it. So how do we create a storage informations? How do we performs the networking operations for communicating for the end users? That's what we are using it. So nowadays all the organizations will have its own data centers, and if we are unable to hire the data centers, we if we are unable to maintain a data centers, we hire the data centers from the data center providers. So data center providers is a big area in the industries where it is used to preserve our data centers for the rent purpose. So like that, so it's very much important to create the data centers. In these subjects we understand how do we create the data centers and its environment by using the networking. That is one thing. So next we are understanding how the storage technology has been become evoluted. So earlier days, whenever we are storing the informations, we are storing the information in the form of tapes. But now I told that the tape information has been converted into CD drive, so CD. Now the CD is converted into a pen drive. So that means if you observe, the tape is been converted into disk is converted into a small devices. So which stores a the 3 gigabytes of data, 32 GB data, 64 GB data, like that. The information has been increasing. Okay, how actually this storage technology has been improvised, that we are learning. Along with that, we understand how the intelligent storages has been done it. Okay, intelligent storages has been done it. Simply we can't store the information in the disk. The disk information has to be stored in a optimized way, so that we can store the large informations in a small spaces. So how do we do that? That is the information we are learning it. In the first module we discuss about, we give an introduction about the storage informations, how the information has been grown, what are the challenges we are facing it, and how do we define a storage. So how do we store the informations in the data centers, okay, and how actually the evolutionary technology for storing the information has been come across, and we learn how do we store the informations intelligently so that we can store the large number of data with the less spaces. That is the first module we are discussing. In the second module, as I was telling that, so we are not only storing the informations in the places, we have to incorporate the networking operations so that it has to communicate it to the end users. So for that purpose, we are understanding how do we perform the networking in the data centers. So to perform the networking in the data centers, we need to adapt some hardware components, like we have to use some fiber channels for communicating our storage areas. This is a storage area, and this storage area has been networked by using the fiber channels. What are the technology we are using by using the fiber channels? So this is one part, this is the hardware part. So not only hardware part we are using it, we use a certain rules for communicating our informations to the end users by using the hardware components, by using a IP protocols, that means internet protocol, by using the storage area network. This is a software part. Along with that, we are knowing that in between so many intermediate hardware components has been incorporated for transmitting the storages informations. So assume that we need a large number of data to be extracted. So it cannot be extracted through the data centers directly. So the data has to be put it to the nearby data centers. From nearby data centers we are extracting the informations. So to perform such type of operations, we need to have a attached network. That means a grid of networks, grid of storage areas, so that the end users who is communicating the informations which is placed in the large areas has to be used with the different centers, and we are accessing it. That is one thing. So second thing is always we are not understanding the data in terms of rows and columns. So each data has been given with the meaningful name for the data center, so that it will be easy for accessing the informations, and it easy for retrieving the informations, and it is easy for searching the informations. For that purpose, all the data which is present in the data centers can be stored in the form of object based database. That means all the information is stored with the object based database. This is the second model we have come across, where we are dealing with the networking of our storage technologies by using the fiber channel, by using the internet protocol, and by using the network attached storages, as well as we are treating all the data in terms of objects, so that it is easy for searching the informations. This is the second part we are discussing in the second module. And other things we are discussing, this is the module regarding the introduction part, where we discussed about what do you mean by storage and how do we perform the networking. So the second part is on maintaining the data. How do we maintain the data, and what are the technology we are using for maintaining the data if we are using the data for a long period of time. So we know that whenever we are taking a photos, that photo has to be stored in the computers, and that photos can be viewed after a long time. Okay, so how what do you mean by that? That means we are taking the backup of our informations which we are taking it. Similarly, in a business module or in any business user generated information has been stored and stored in the backup. Okay, and those backups will be used for different applications. So to perform such type of operations, we need to have a certain techniques. How do we perform the backups, and how do we retrieve the backups? Assume that some data is been lost. Okay, at that cases the data has to be stored in the different data centers. So if one data center is lost, from the other data center we are extracting the informations. So how do we do that? That will be done, that will be learned in the third modules, where we are where we are discussing the topic called backups, as well as we have something called archive. So where we are integrating some of the data and consolidating some of the data, and preserving the data in less spaces, so that we can extract the information by using some keywords. That means the data which we are storing will be kept in a preserved way, and some identity will be given to that data. So whenever we are accessing the data, we access along with the key itself, instead of extracting the informations of large data. So that is called as an archive. And as I was telling that, so some data may be lost in one data centers. For that purpose we need to replicate the data. So we are learning how do we replicate the data. All these operations like taking the backup and replicating the data and duplicating the data for sharing the informations, because whenever we are sharing the informations in a particular data centers, if the users of the data in that data centers may be high, then the load will be high for the data centers. to overcome the load balance, that means the data which is accessing by that data centers may not be have the capacity to share that information. For that purpose, the business will be slowed down, so that information which is shared by the end users may be slowed down. At that cases, we need to duplicate the data. From the same data has to be duplicated and kept in new data centers, and from that data centers the data has been shared to the end users. So that has to be done. How do we do that? For the business continuity. So all these operations is used for business continuity and availability of informations for the end users for improving the business. So that is the things, maintenance part we are learning in the third module. And the fourth module we are discussing about the cloud computing technology. We know that presently everyone are speaking about cloud computing. That means whatever the operations we do it, that means either in terms of computing operations, either in terms of storing operations, either in terms of receiving the informations for a large applications, will not be done at the end host side. So it will be done at the cloud. That means some data center operations will be done. Okay, in data center the operations will be done and the data will be increased. All these operations, and you may have heard something called virtualization. Virtualization is a concept used in the storage area network for improvising our storage capacity and improvising our performance of operations in the storage areas. Even cloud computing also is a methodology adapted in the storage area networks to improvise the capacity of storing the informations and retrieving the informations from the data centers. So that storing the informations in the remote places and retrieving the informations from the remote places with the less time spaces and less memory spaces is learned in the cloud computing. So in these subjects you are introducing what do you mean by cloud computing and what are the infrastructures adapted for making our storage area networks more efficient. So what are the infrastructures we are using to perform the operations. And also we know that whenever we are understanding the cloud computings, we understand the cloud computing in terms of layered forms of architectures. That means each layer will be mentioned with some operations. So that was called as service model. For each layer we are performing the services. So and then we understand how do we deploy, what are the different types of options are there for deploying the things. Next, the fifth module which we are discussing about the security and managing the data. So we know that the data storing is in a remote places is very tedious, and informations can be theft by the middle persons. To overcome that, we need to incorporate some security features for our data which we are storing in a remote places. And how do we perform those operations, that we are learning in the fifth module. Along with that, we need to understand how the data has been monitored, how the data has been monitored. For example, we store the data and we don't know where actually the data has been stored. So to understand that, we need to have a software, and from monitoring softwares, that monitoring software will tells that where actually the data has been stored and how much data has been stored, how much remaining data memory storage area is required, and who is accessing the data, and the privileges can be given for the end users who is accessing the data. So that will be done by the storage monitoring, as well as we also can perform the management activities, as I was telling, that giving the privileges for the end users. So that is one thing. And I was talking about something called virtualized and cloud environment. So these are the two features we are incorporating in the storage area network to increases the performance of storage area networks. That means all the data which we are storing has to be virtually utilized. That means real data has been copied, and only a piece of information has been shared for a particular purpose. Such type of information is called as virtualization, and the data is stored in the remote data centers is called as a cloud computing. We are using the different storage informations for extracting the data. This is regarding the syllabus which is incorporated in 17CS754 for 7 semester students for as an elective subjects. In this chapter we understand what do you mean by data centers environment, how do we look the data center environment, like as I was telling that. So each organizations having its own data centers, and in some large number of companies cannot maintain its own data centers. It can be hired from the data center providers. So to understand how the data centers has been distributed and what type of data center, whether it is a centralized data centers or whether the distributed data centers, like that we understand the different types of data centers in the first module after understanding what do you mean by storages. Next we understand how do we protect our data. So we know, as I was telling, that the data has been stored in the form of disks some places, and it will be stored in a hierarchical order. So how actually the data has been arranged in the form of an array. Okay, array type of data is being stored in the form of disk, that is redundant array information disk. Okay, like how the information has been stored in the form of an array. For protecting our data, we are protecting our large number of data in a compact places. That is we are understanding. Next we understand what do you mean by intelligent systems, how do we store the things. So now let us understand what do you mean by information storage. So we know that the data has been generated by the individual person. Okay, even we use a mobiles, and we share the information to the other people for communication purpose. Okay, that is also called as a data, and we share the pictures, that is also called as a data. It's not only data. So whenever we want to communicate our informations officially, we need to share the information through the emails, right? So like that is also called as an authenticated data sharing the informations. Where that data has been stored, it is stored in the Google Drive, right? So in the email. So that means that drive is nothing but a storage spaces and the areas. So nowadays always we use for the informations. For example, we go for the airline reservations. Assume that we want to travel from one place to the another places. We need to perform the reservations. That reservations has to be done in the form of informations. Okay, and it is stored in the form of informations. And if you want to pay our electrical bills, okay, and that electrical bills is stored in computers, and our information has been placed in some places. Okay, and we have to clear that bill. So that is also called as an informations. Or else, as I was telling the example, whenever we want to communicate in the computers through the email, or we want to book any product in the Amazon. So that is done through the some storage area networks itself, which is called as a internet commerce. And if you want to do the banking, banking plays the internet bankings and all, right? So and electronic banking, so that is also should be stored in the informations. And whenever we are using the credit card, so that credit card is also having the informations of our personal details, so for performing the operations, so that is also called as an informations. Even whenever we are going for the medical treatment, and our body informations, and that claiming the insurances, for that also we need a informations. Like that, the informations can be used everywhere. So the informations either can be done by the on demand or by the on command. For example, our banking people will be asking our informations on command, on demand. Like that, the informations will be shared by the end users for generating the important applications by on demand or on command informations. Usually we generate the informations in the internet by searching the operations. Like whenever we are required the informations, search the operations in the internet, that means the information is been stored in some places, we search it, and we use a social networking, and we perform the email operations, and we share the pictures and videos. These are also called as a information which is stored in some places, and we are sharing that informations. So all these shared informations will be done by using the telephones. Initially where we use smartphones, telephones, like that, are smart devices like electronic devices and other things. Or else we use cameras also. Even camera is also as a storage informations. We extract the data and we store the informations in the cameras, and also we use in the laptops. All these type of informations which is generated by the end users has to be maintained in some places. So that is a small users information generated. So for example, if you have a large organizations where it has to run its businesses for the end users, okay, end users, at that cases it has to maintain its businesses, it has to maintain the informations. That maintain information has to be done with the data centers. So these data centers will be using the redundant array of disks for storing the informations initially. If it is unable to store those informations, it will be putting the data into a cloud environment. So before putting the cloud environment, if you want to perform to increases the data information which is stored, has to be performed the virtualization. That means, so the information which is placed in the computers is being given a ID, and through ID we are extracting the large information. That means virtually we are generating the data and placing in some places. Whenever we are searching with the indexed data itself, and we are extracting the data by using the things, okay, by using the virtualization concepts. Like that, data centers will incorporate virtualization concepts and the cloud computing operations to maintain a large number of data in the organizations. This is what actually we are learning about the things in the information storages. That means information is generated by different applications, and informations can be extracted in the on demand. Informations can be done for the by the end users by searching, social networking, email, and share pictures. And information is generated by using the cell phone and smart devices, cameras and laptops, like that. And for the large organization, it has to maintain the data for storing the informations. That will be utilized by the data centers. Data centers will be uses the concept of virtualization and cloud computing operation.